thought about that one. Fuck off! So I'm always a little ZGB what? I'm always a little suspicious. I'm a little sus. Spam this cane to help the Dane. Ah, that's pretty good. If there's a cane emote, though. Brand new best of 5 PvP for the grand finals of the ESL EU Open Cup number 28. It's been so long. Halfway through the year. The top right of Everdream. It is the blue Protoss ShowTimE. In the bottom left, as the red Protoss for Team Exxon. He is MaxPax. Yeah. Yeah. Well, MaxPax showed good understanding of PvP. I definitely think you could still be critical and say, oh, he's winning his PvZs and his PvTs by being cheesy and kind of weird. Like, okay, some people are going to keep with that conversation. And I still think it's a fine conversation to have. I mean, people have roots. They have things that they're obviously more comfortable with. That's going to be what they fall back on. What's going to be what they can depend on to get them some wins they otherwise wouldn't. And sometimes that includes being a little bit cheesy. Right? For ShowTimE, what he depended on, what he fell back to, was probably more so about the turtling and the macro, which probably lost him more games than he would like back in his earlier years. The lack of bloodlust, you know? And he just gave games away. Which is actually a very big problem for many non-Koreans, in fact. I would say, anyways. That bloodlust seemed to be missing for a while, but anyways. So MaxPax, you could say that, but is PvP actually, considering he took the series all the way to 5 games. And I assume of all those 5 games against Mana, he played some decent PvP, even the ones that he lost. I actually feel very confident that he's just good PvP. He's just good player all around. Is he as good as ShowTimE? That I'm not sure about. That I am not sure about. ShowTimE, like many, if not every single Protoss probably, might say he doesn't understand the matchup, that PvP is just a big old clusterfuck. But he is shown very good PvP today. And unless MaxPax can prove me wrong in this first game, I think ShowTimE has shown better PvP. But we'll see. Adepts find stalkers, and that's not what they wanted to find. Trying to run away now. One will barely live. Decent enough micro there from MaxPax. One base target? Nah, his X is on the way. Wait, was that one base? That is so close on the production tab. I did not see which one went down first. Regardless, a very fast Stargate. Very fast Stargate. And a proxy pylon, a second one. Interesting. Huh, alright. We'll get back to that. Because we already did one to just fake out ShowTimE. But this other one is actually unique. Huh, alright. I'm just messing with you? Okay. Like I said, I'm just a little suspicious, you know? I didn't think you were being serious, but I'm always like... Getting a Sentry would be amazing. Getting a Pylon is actually not too bad either, because if this was aggression that was leading to more aggression, suddenly that Pylon's not there to build a shield battery, this could have been really bad news. It's actually not much more, though, from ShowTimE. This is super cool. MaxPax with the trickery, showing more units than he actually had. He basically just, like, puffed up like a cat. And he was like, I'm really big, trust me! He really wasn't. But it's very, very unlikely for a Protoss to have an observer over the natural at this point in the game, so I really liked the hallucinations a lot. Decent amount of Sentry energy, so maybe hallucination isn't as fast, but it's alright. He doesn't really need hallucinations because he has an Oracle. The Oracle getting 3 probe kills so far is actually not that bad. A shield battery at the natural kind of helps save what maybe would have been 2 or 3 more probes. And that very fast Stargate so far has not really paid off, despite it being so well guarded. Also, this pylon, I guess it was just to warp in proxy Adepts. We saw MaxPax being very aggressive against Mana with a Stargate opener and Adepts. So he wanted the combination to complicate matters for ShowTimE. But ShowTimE, by finding the pylon, takes away any complication. Only has to focus on the Oracle. And if you're only focusing on the Oracle, it's really not bad of a gig. It's especially if it's only one Oracle. 2 Oracles, it's always a little bit scary, but if it's only 1 Oracle, nothing else here, heck, you're even thinking it'll eventually die because Blink is on the way for both parties. Forge on the way for both parties as well, only slight timing differences. Good find on the Oracle, stops the stasis trap and does get that Oracle without even having to wait for Blink. MaxPax is going kind of greedy here, going for a really fast third Nexus. When you get Blink, the idea is that because you can control the game a little bit more, you can try and go ahead and get a faster third, but it's still something you really have to size up and be careful about. I think he is doing this a little bit greedy, a little bit knowing he's taking a risk. In this specific game, though, totally correct, totally correct. ShowTimE is also going for a third Nexus. They're both doing the exact same thing, and the fact that his Nexus is just a little bit faster, it's like maybe a little bit more of a risk, it's gonna work out well for him. If his probe count can keep up. Thank you, Swef. For the tier 1 sub. Actual use of Halluce? Actual use of Halluce. It's like a tongue twister. Actual use of Halluce. Actual use of Halluce. Sorry, we're kind of waiting, so I don't. We're waiting a little bit to see what happens, and actually, didn't have to wait too long to see something interesting. Despite both of them going up to what seemed to be the kind of standard, or what is becoming the standard of PvP, blink on blink on blink on blink on blink. They both go for some important technology differences. ShowTimE doesn't just immediately go into his own disruptors. In fact, so far, no robotics bay at all. But instead he goes for really fast charge. We've seen a couple blink to blink builds in the previous PvPs today. And you guys can attest that charge has come down either not at all or much later on into the game. Both of them, I guess, accurately seeing like how similar they are and wanting to get a change up here. Both of them going for charge, and then eventually both of them going for a robo. The difference is having that charge could actually mean ShowTimE has a good push. Is that his idea? He doesn't bring a War Prism with this, or it's far back. Oh, it is far back. Oh, it's way far back. Okay, so yeah, he just actually is able to do a push because he was like, you know what? Charge is what I'm going to get first before that robotics bay. And charge is going to really complicate matters. You have to micro against that with the stalkers as opposed to just using blink micro against blink micro. The disruptors have to suddenly choose between trying to knock zealots out of the park or go for the juicy hits on top of the stalkers. And hell, ShowTimE doesn't even need the zealots. And he even blinks away from one disruptor shot to begin with. He's already won this game, in fact. Well, shit, I was going to talk a lot about how we're going to go into a mid-game, and ShowTime's like, no, we aren't. I'm going to win. All right, GG. Decisive. And I love that he did it without even waiting for charge. I thought that was the master plan there. Kind of fit in like a faster attack with a more complex army than what we've been seeing. Not just stalkers. And instead he was like, no, just stalkers works fine. Yeah, I guess it did. I guess it did. ShowTimE also always had a bit of a lead in the economy, which I think helps his stalker count. No, I was going to show you the graph, and then I went into the game. Whoops! The War Chest Team League matchups are now online in public, and I gotta say, pretty sure my team's gonna do really well. Not gonna lie. What I need is a logo, though. I don't know what logo I could use that wouldn't be, like, copyright, though. We can't just put pictures on Rick and Morty. Alright, we're on Pillars of Gold for game number 2. In the bottom left is ShowTimE, up 1-0. And in the top right, as the red Protoss, he is MaxPax. Both of them going for the low ground pylon seems to be the plan of Pillars of Gold. It does have the ramp on the natural where, I don't know, I'm really thinking about it. I guess a lot of the maps in the current map pool don't have a natural ramp. Which is what it sounds like. Like literally there is a ramp that is a choke, and also high ground, low ground is a consideration for their natural. Many of our maps in this map pool have just a choke, but no ramp. So, that makes sense. This is why we see Pillars of Gold have this happen so commonly. Seems like ShowTimE is mixing things up a little bit, though. I mean, MaxPax is freely scouting a lack of Nexus, and that's why he bothered to pylon block it as well. But MaxPax has also been pylon blocked. And ShowTimE is like, okay, well, screw you. I'm just going to go for a second gateway. Which maybe he was already planning on doing anyways, but I'm just wondering why MaxPax isn't going for a second gateway. Because he's going for a Stargate. There you go. I just had to wait. I just had to wait for my answer. Alright, well, that's going to be scouted, because a one-base Stargate is scoutable if a probe doesn't leave, which is always a funny thing about PvP, is that the probe gets in, sees no second pylon, and then leaves, is what usually happens. So then they don't get back in to see, hey, it was a one-base Stargate, actually. Because they're looking for what's happening with the second pylon. But if a probe is as much of an asshole as this probe is, and just continues to dance around, then yeah, you can't really hide your technology. ShowTimE would have the same struggles, but he didn't hide technology. He very readily showed, I'm going for a second gateway. If I'm going for a second gateway, I'm going to have double the amount of units. Guys, you can do the math, guys. You can do the math. I believe you can. ShowTimE has a little bit of a chance to get a little bit of a lead. Shouldn't be too much, though. Just because Pillars of Gold has distance between both of their naturals. And Warp Gate's not done. There's no proxy pylons. There's no Warp Prisms. So while ShowTimE does have a lead in army, it shouldn't be enough to break up a ramp against a shield battery with probes technically able to be pulled. Although I don't think you would want to. Thank you, good captcha. I thought I saw a Phoenix made, and I guess maybe he canceled it and instead went for the Oracle. Maybe he was kind of in panic mode for a second and then realized, oh, you know what, I don't have to worry about this. But yeah, it is going to be an Oracle. So ShowTimE kind of shows like, oh yeah, I got units and you don't. Oh god. Well, doesn't really do anything, so backs away. Forced out a shield battery. I mean, a little bit of probe not mining, I guess, but mostly just a shield battery. Doesn't spend any time on a Stargate, so if he's able to defend this perfectly, then being able to go into a Twilight Council faster and a Forge faster as well should benefit him better in the long run. The power of the Stargate is that it can almost always get damage done. Initially, the Oracle doesn't do anything. That's not good for the Stargate player. It's not great, but eventually you figure they're going to get 2 probes there, 2 probes over there, a stasis trap here. That's why it's like, oh, if ShowTimE does defend perfectly, MaxPax has found himself a little bit down in this game. A little bit. One probe on the economy. A little bit later to the +1 in the blink. It's such slight differences, though. I don't think it'll play a part. In fact, with such slight differences, I would even say that MaxPax having such supreme vision with his Oracle might even turn out better. He can hopefully make smarter decisions based off of this consistent scouting and revelation. Which, ooh, he does need to scout, doesn't he? Proxy Gateway's on the way. ShowTimE is really broken out of the stereotype of him just being a macro player. I think in certain matchups, you've been forced to not be a macro player. At certain points, certain metas. Just like bio players at one point had to play mech. It was just so what you had to do back in Heart of the Swarm. PvP has almost always been a matchup where you couldn't really truly be just a macro player. You're supposed to mix things in, and certainly for the last 2 or 3 years, that has absolutely been the case. You're supposed to be a little more aggressive. Even beyond PvP, ShowTime's been showing proxy gateways, MaxPaxing Terran opponents, cheesing his Zerg opponents. And while we're in a PvP and it makes a lot of sense to mix things up, it is always cool and a little bit surprising. We're like, oh, ShowTime's the one to bring it to the other guy. He's the one that's proxying a gateway. He's the one that's not going to just go for a nexus and go, oh, I'm just going to build some probes, don't worry about it. No, he's actually going to do something. In fact, I think he's going to get a cancel on this nexus, which would be quite a devastating cancel. Already about 80% done. MaxPax is not building any units either because he figures this is a moment where he doesn't have to build units. If you don't have to build units, build your production first, build your upgrades first, and then build your units, hopefully before an attack comes. The attack's already here, and there are not a lot of units for MaxPax. I think he has to abandon the third nexus, but if he abandons it too quickly, then he just simply dies. So he's probably even hoping that he'll buy him some time. ShowTime's not going to give him any. Jumps on top of the sentries, on top of some of the stalkers, and then also does, in fact, get that nexus kill. MaxPax is in a world of trouble. He's down half the armor supply of his opponent, and the Oracle cannot help in the situation. No stasis trap had come down to even try to help. And all ShowTime really had to do, I think, was get the kill on that nexus, and he could theoretically go home, but why bother? Why not just push the issue and try to win? Oracle desperately going across the map to get some revenge. Is going to find probably 8-9 probe kills. Yeah, it dies, but that was okay use of it. He is still down in that army supply. His production just finished up, but his economy isn't where it wanted to be. And he even started +2 weapons, I would say almost a little bit greedy. Like, it's the risk he wanted to take, assuming he would survive. And he is surviving. He's on 2 base, tucked into his little corner there, but he's alive. And that +2 lead might give him something to work with later on down the line. But as I said, I think all ShowTime really had to do was get the kill on Nexus, and then he could back off, so he's going to just contain. Get his own third Nexus. Quickly go through the rundown of what could bring MaxPax back into this game. DTs, first and foremost. Then maybe Disruptors, right? And try to account for that and defend against that. Screeching pain helplessly. 7 probes go down as MaxPax was partially long distance mining and maybe even a little bit of scouting. It was actually kind of weird to see them do what they did, but also the main base. +2 will be done faster for MaxPax, but not by very much. ShowTime is already getting rewarded on the third base, having probes on it and mining, so we'll have a consistent round of production after production, and also excess minerals if he doesn't have production to put into shield batteries and cannons, which is exactly what he's doing. Cannons first, maybe thinking about those DTs. Shield batteries now as he realizes MaxPax is just 2 base all-winning. Lucid Phoenix to the main base to confirm that. And MaxPax with one last chrono on his +2 is looking for that timing. He's only down about 7 army supply with his most recent warp in, but he has shield overcharge and just general shield batteries to deal with as well. He has a Guardian shield, which ShowTime does not, which I would say is usually considerable. But right now, neither one of them is really playing with the full might of their Stalker army. And the shield battery, sorry, the Guardian shield is now gone. The shield batteries are now done. And MaxPax ain't cracking that. He's going to try and buy time, though. Oh, which ShowTimE is not gonna fall for it. He actually aggressively blinks after MaxPax and says, no, we're taking this fight. It's happening. Gets maybe a slight lead on the resources trade there, but then backs away rather conservatively. Didn't want to take a chance of maybe MaxPax having a disruptor coming out from the north side and surprising him, I guess. MaxPax was able to get a third Nexus up, or is trying to get a third Nexus up. But he has lost that contain idea. He's trying to add in some charge lots as well, because they really do complicate matters. They're on top of the Stalkers. The Stalkers can't just sit there. The Stalkers do too much, the Zealots do too much damage. So the Stalkers will blink back against the charge lots, which then means they're not blinking back against the other Stalkers, and they're not blinking back against the Disruptors, which you'd think would be coming. There we go. Disruptor on the way. So, charge is useful. And it's not even that expensive either, right? They nerfed it or buffed it rather, a long time ago. Long time ago, I think. Because it used to be 150, 100, right? 150, 150 even? Anyways, I'm talking like 5 years ago. Anyways. But while it does round out your composition a little bit more, give you a little more variety, we actually sometimes see people just not bother going for charge at all. In this game, both of them do it. But now it's also like, okay, well, how many charge lots do you make? In this case, ShowTimE, just a handful. Just a little sprinkle. And then MaxPax might actually even make like a decent amount of Zealots, just hoping that their difference, the fact that it's a different composition, will help with what maybe he's expecting is a army deficit. Which it is, but maybe not as much as he's actually thinking. Not as much as I thought. MaxPax was later to the third Nexus, later to saturating his third Nexus, and still down in workers. But the armor supplies aren't too bad. Certainly something a good surround of Zealots could change, or of course, a couple good Disruptor shots could change. Both of them have equal upgrades. ShowTimE actually retreating from the fight, though. I guess he ran in, saw something he didn't like, the presence of Disruptors, the charge lots already being available, and said, never mind. And oh, look at that split. We've seen this before. He did this versus Harsum, and it was very effective. Now, Harsum was also trying to reach towards a fourth base, which MaxPax has not been able to do here. But I guess that means instead of harassing a fourth base, you just jump up to the main base. Oh, God. Oh, jeez. I really thought ShowTimE was going to do it, but he's actually not. Wow, ShowTimE maybe just showing some amazing patience, just waited all that time saying, chase it, pretty boy, and then actually was waiting to send Zealots over to the left side. Sorry, Stalkers over the left side. But a decent amount of Zealot warp-ins made it to the Stalkers, really couldn't do a whole lot. Even an aggressive blink forward on the left side from MaxPax. ShowTimE started to recollect his army altogether, maybe thinking he could surprise his opponent trying to split when he's actually not splitting. But so far, MaxPax doing a great job of actually catching ShowTimE off guard, saying, no, you cannot do that, stop it. You're not going to get set up. I'm not going to let you control me. And kudos to him. Kudos for that. He's still down in supply, but it is mostly in those workers at this point. ShowTimE up to 4 bases, 67 workers. No additional technology coming out from the Blue Protoss either, so it's just Disruptor versus Disruptor. Dark Shrine on the way from MaxPax. ShowTimE coming in from the backside. Oh my god, that was so dangerous. There are so many Disruptors. But he grabs one and leaves, and oh my god, the Disruptor shots from ShowTimE! Oh my god. But, on the other hand, MaxPax does return the favor and destroys all of ShowTime's Disruptors. But wow, that was literally in the blink of an eye. A deciding fight. And now with the only partial recall, it looks like MaxPax has just actually lost this game. I mean, look at the amount of supply. 56 arm supply to 111. ShowTime Stalker count out of control. And now he knows that, well, maybe not all Disruptors of the dead are dead Disruptors, that, well, there's not going to be a whole lot of them, are there? ShowTime, yeah, just too many Stalkers, I'm pretty sure. I think MaxPax will have 4 Disruptors soon enough, which is starting to get to a good point. I'd say 7 or 8, we were like, you'll never touch me. but it looks like ShowTimE isn't going to go for the kill. He does kill the Nexus, but is not going to force the actual main engagement. And that is going to give MaxPax time to go back into double robo production. Boost that disruptor count to a point where maybe he could hold on indefinitely. MaxPax also did add on a mostly charter army like I was talking about, and I really do feel like this is just basically to complicate matters, to say, okay, my army is different than yours, so it's not as big, maybe it can make some magic work. It also really makes disruptor shots harder to use, because you don't want to ever use them on your own units, and charge lots are melee. And charge lots, sometimes they clump up real bad, and disruptors are great against them. Other times they go single file, and disruptors are kind of bad against them. So I still love that MaxPax is recognized what he has to do. He has to change the game somehow. And by doing mass charge lots, he's trying to, but he also has to get amazing disruptor shots, and that's not really happened so far. At least not without some type of return, which, oof. Decent force field trapping some of the stalkers in here. One more disruptor shot gets the heart of the blink stalkers. Are you kidding me? That was an amazing shot. And the zealots are on top of the stalkers. In fact, the stalkers aren't really doing a decent job of even attacking. They're just crab walking in a panic against those charge lots. And MaxPax takes one of the best fights he absolutely could, but he was so far down in supply. He's still inevitably trading out worse than his opponent without a fourth base on the way. And it is still ShowTimE's game. But damn, that was close. That was scary. That was, oh my god, can ShowTimE actually lose? He has like 50 more stalkers than this kid. Okay, apparently ShowTimE can't lose, but thank you. Thank you for letting it look for a second like you might. GG. Dim Meower. Best PvP. Game number 2 to ShowTimE. He's gonna get the 3-0. Game number 3 is going to be on Death Aura. And I'm feeling the 3-0 once again for ShowTimE. He just looks so damn good. I mean, even in these really weird scenarios. These new scenarios, PvP is constantly changing and evolving and blah blah blah. Like, he still looked really good. We'll see what MaxPax has to show us. MaxPax's mechanics are decent. They're good. I don't know if they're #1 Protoss player in Europe good. But that's not necessarily where he's getting a lot of his victories, is it? It's off of his creativity, his weirdness, his decisiveness, and a little bit of his rashness, A little bit of the risk-taking that usually is attributed to our younger players. Not just, like, literally that they are young, and young guys, I guess, are stereotypically more risky. But anyways, but also because they're just not as experienced, so they take all these huge risks and maybe regret it later. Sometimes it really pays off in a big way. That's what the MaxPax build is kind of around. It was ingenious. It was risky at one point. It was like, this can't possibly work. And I was like, wait a second, it's actually really great. And MaxPax has also shown a decent amount of cannon rushing and then multiple other cheeses in this tournament. So I think that's might be where he's going to shine against a guy like ShowTimE. And in fact, even faking a cannon rush already is nicely done. ShowTimE doing a pretty good job of not overreacting. Well played so far in Death Aura. Probe's gonna stick around for a lot of scouting to be done, but they are both going for that high ground wall off once again. MaxPax has tried a couple of, you know, Stargate, fast Stargate builds, and, you know, obviously matched the last game as far as the Nexus timings. But he hasn't really done a whole lot of, like, super aggressive stuff. I guess it's kind of difficult to do, because ShowTime, much as I'm saying that MaxPax is, like, maybe going to benefit more from those more micro-oriented builds than the 30 Stalkers versus 30 Stalker macro builds. I mean, ShowTime's not been showing any weakness to that either from the other Protoss who played today, so... Ultimately, I am saying that ShowTime is probably the better player, and MaxPax still has a lot of growing to do, but I'm also saying that, fuck, it's really impressive that MaxPax is 15 years old and he's already showing not just good skill overall, again, good mechanics and decision-making and build order variety, and, you know, he's got all the matchups and way to play all of them, is that he is also showing some good decision-making. He also is showing some patience. Like, there's been a lot of up-and-coming Protoss in the past that I would say had, you know, glaring faults. And, nowadays it feels like, well, yeah, they have their faults, but I wouldn't say it's glaring at all. This third game, I am certainly feeling for ShowTime. Once again, finding the Adepts in the middle of the map, forcing them to run away and shade, which means they have to shade again to even get close to ShowTime's base. And by that point, there's 2 more units from ShowTime out, and well, it is just better when you find them in the middle of the map. Thank you very much, Uncle Slim, for the 166 bits. White Council at the front. We have seen some more wall-offs on Death Aura at the Natural and PvP, which always found really cool. You know, PvP is a bit of that TVT problem where contains happen in okay amounts, I guess. Especially since Blink Stalkers have come back in, so basically you're putting your very important tech structure in danger when your Blink is a little bit later than your opponent's, and they just are like poking at you and going, lol, you can't touch me, you can't touch me. But on the other hand, if he's really going to go for a bunch of Adepts, which is absolutely what MaxPax is doing, then having a wall and a wall is fantastic. ShowTime is Demeower, and today he is twice the Demeower. He is twice the wall. Fantastic response against the Adepts. Absolutely fantastic. Brutal, too, for MaxPax. Trying to really divvy things up in the early game, go for something that's pretty aggressive and committed. You know, you don't want to build that many Adepts to do anything else in this game, but to be aggressive. And that's what I wanted him to do. So, you know, like, oh, yeah, you should have tried it. Well, it still failed. It still failed. Going back to the whole, like, I like MaxPax. I think he's good, but fuck, ShowTime's actually playing really good, you know? That's just the difference. It's just what it boils down to. Hallucinated Phoenix even getting a follow-up scout to confirm what else could be on the way. Doesn't see the third Nexus, though. So it was only a partial scout. But ShowTime has dealt with the Adepts, has Blink and +1 on the way, is prepared to block out more Adepts with this probe in position. And he's got that clever little Dark Shrine. MaxPax tries the 6 or 8 Adept, I think it was, build. Doesn't work out at all. Thinks, okay, maybe I have some time to recover here. I don't think ShowTime's going to have a 2-base push anytime soon. Well, he doesn't have a push. You're right about that. So this third Nexus might be not going to be attacked by a bunch of Immortals and a Warp Prism and Zealots. Doesn't matter, because DTs are going to be in your bases, killing all your probes, doing all the damage. He saw the Dark Shrine. I was like, well, it seems like an awful anti-Dark Shrine setup. So, kudos to MaxPax for trying to hold on here until the Robo is done, but... Or the Observer is done, sorry, not the Robo. Observer is done, but... Whew, that was a really scary point. So he's trying to build a wall, just like, you know, ShowTime did. Stalkers popped that anyways. And then he made sure to have his units here to wall, quote-unquote, against the DTs from the main. Still very close losing his Nexus, though. It's still very dangerous. But at the end of the day, do we call that a failure for ShowTime? Kind of feels like they both did things that are equal. Both with harassment units that are used in a more direct, dangerous way, and both just kind of being rebuffs. Just come back later, we're busy. DTs, in this case, ended up dying too, though. At least some of the adepts got away, but the DTs ended up dying. Blink is done for both parties. ShowTimE has maybe slightly more stalkers available? I think he does. Guardian Shield unavailable as the sentry goes down and the probes are being pulled into this. MaxPax rear reinforcements. He's got 2 more stalkers on the way and he has 5 gateways, but didn't have a lot of bank there. I guess the blip on his economy, having to pull the probes to the main base, really hurt his production capabilities, and he wasn't anticipating having the immediate Blink Stalker follow-up. With +1, by the way. This is really crucial. ShowTimE forced to use a recall on the 3rd base to help out against the Adepts as they went through the natural. The probe was not paying attention. It was being lazy. Loses 7 probes of his own. Didn't lose the sentries, though, which is surprising. But that was really crucial because MaxPax was really hurt and losing that Guardian Shield, not having as many warp-ins as he really needed. It seemed like maybe things could spiral out of control. But it did not. He pushes it back. Might want to go and find this pylon as well. Just to get that out of his things to worry about list. Double hallucinations going in the main base. Want to see the robotics bay, no doubt. Dark Shrines are critical components of 3 base Blink Stalker to Blink Stalker anyways. So ShowTime's go ahead and go, okay, alright, they didn't do what I wanted, but on my way to Shadow Stride. And he should also get a robotics bay. Should also get a robotics bay?
Credits received. Thank you for your monetary support.
I'm checking everything and I don't see a robotics bay. Huh, alright. So MaxPax is going to have, by far, more disruptors, faster disruptors. Ew, which ShowTimE does know about. But ShowTimE is just going to continue dedicating to DT's charge and the upgrades for his stalkers as well. DT's in the main base doing some pretty nice damage, even getting a couple of armament units down before the Observer can respond, and that just pulled MaxPax entirely out of position, and actually that is just game. No disruptors necessary. ShowTimE with the 3-0. In total, I think, what? 3 plus 8-0'd. 8-0'd PvP. In this tournament. So, you know, when you put it that way, it sounds pretty impressive. And I'm just saying, I chose well. ZombieGrub do good.